That's me with the updates. Thank you for being patient with that. And now I'm going to hand you over to Gina Gardiner. As I say, she's been a member for almost as long as I have. And I'm so grateful to her for her friendship, for her wisdom, for her energy. It's unsurpassable. She's always at the end of the week, she's telling us, oh yes, I did this and this and this and this. And I'm like, wow, that would take me a month of Sundays to get through all of that. And she just, oh yeah, that was Tuesday. So I would love to hand over now to you, Gina, so that you can share your story of how you got into Collaboration Global and also how you got to be an enlightened leader.
Thank you. Could you let me share, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got that now. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got to find it now. There we go.
A little green button.
I found the thing. I just got to find the right thing. So there we go. Why is it on whenever you're on Zoom that whatever bit you need to reach is always covered by the bar?
I think it's called Sod's Law.
Yes, I think you're right. So thanks, Jill, for inviting me. And for those of you that know my story, you can now go to sleep for a little while. But I've had quite a long story. I've lived quite a long life. I'm probably the oldest person here, but that doesn't mean that I am as yet finished. So my name's Gina Gardiner and my company is Genuinely You. But I wasn't always in business. In 1982, I was appointed to be the deputy to a large junior school, and I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. It was a busy school, but they were very much in the dark ages. And for those of you that are in America, deputy principal, in the UK, we call them head teacher. For the first 6 months was very busy strategically planning with my then head teacher. And then in February, I went off skiing. I was a very keen skier. But in those days, it was very fashionable to have skis as long as you could possibly get them. And I was convinced by the salesman that I needed skis that were 10 centimeters longer than I was used to, and proceeded to spend the whole week wrapping that 10 centimeters around my neck. On the Thursday of the trip, I had a bad fall. And so on the Friday, which is our last day, I said to the group that I was skiing with, I'm just going to go and ski by myself. I need to get my confidence back. I've ripped my new ski suit from thigh to ankle, and I'd put an earring through my ear. And they said, well, join us for lunch. And at that point, they said, we found this amazing new run. Come with us. It's a beautiful run. We were in St. Anton in Italy, where generally speaking, the slopes are graded. A green slope in St. Anton is a red slope elsewhere. A red slope is a black slope, and so on. So I met them for lunch. It was a fabulous day. The sun was shining and the mountains were glistening, and off we set. We got to the top of the chairlift and I followed them. And we hadn't gone very far when I discovered that actually they'd taken the wrong turning. And for me, it was one of the opportunities to recognize that it's not the challenges in life which define us, but what we choose to do with them. Because instead of being on the top of this very gentle 6-kilometer run, we were on the top of a black diamond run where there were moguls the size of cars. They were 6 foot tall. And the only way to turn was to slip down the mogul. I managed to ski down about a third of the slope, and then I fell because I'd left it too long to turn. I then skied down to where they were all sitting on a mogul each, rather like an elf sitting on a mushroom. And I took my skis off and we were sitting in the sunshine, when suddenly the snow gave way and I found myself falling. The last thing I remember is hearing a scream, and then everything went black. And I came to sometime later and told I'd fallen between 150 and 200 feet. Over the next few minutes, people handed me back my glasses, my skis. The one good thing is that by this time I had skied or fallen down most of the mountain, and I was determined not to use the blood wagon. And so with their help, I got back to the hotel. We traveled back the next day. I was living at home with my parents at the time. My mum took one look at me and I was dragged off to accident and emergency, where they said that I'd got a bad concussion and I had trapped a nerve in my neck and was bruised all over. So I managed to get to school within the next sort of 3 weeks, and then was due to go away on the borough ski party with 115 children. And I was told I could go because we had a medic with us. And so off I went to Switzerland this time. And as the week went on, I became more and more like Quasimodo, until the very last day. By the time we got to tea time, I said to my colleagues, I just can't manage anymore. I've got to go and lie down. And within a very few minutes, I discovered that I was paralyzed down one side. I didn't want to scare the children. I had to wait until somebody came to find me. And in that time, it was endless. To cut a long story short, it took me till the end of May to get back to school. And I was not really doing very well. I was doing school and sleep. I got to the school holidays and then was very pleased to be able to then, as I thought, have a rest. 8 days in, a very early morning phone call was my head teacher's wife. She was hysterical as she'd just found John Hughes had died overnight. So far from being the quiet holiday, I helped her arrange the funeral. I contacted the staff, the parents, the authority, and I was by that time acting head. And I was appointed to be the head in the January, permanent head. And I was there for just over 20 years. One of the things that I've learned over the years is if you can't change the problem, you can't change the challenge. You can change the way you react to it. And for me, that's been one of the central tenets of my working life. So I continued to run my school, and I ran my school for the most part from a wheelchair. And what I realized is you get what you focus on. If you focus on what you can't do, then actually you can't do much. If you focus on what you can do, it is amazing what you can manage. And so at home, if somebody hadn't left out a cup and filled the kettle, I couldn't make a drink. But if I went into school, I could run my school, and it became an award-winning school, one of the best, on the best 100 schools list in the country twice during my tenure. I realized that ultimately, when you focus on what you can do, then you can do far more. I also discovered it was really important to look for the gift in any challenge. And the huge gift in my disability was that I couldn't physically get into the classrooms. And as a result of that, I had to develop a way to create personal leadership, people taking radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the team. And I'd like to think I'd have done that anyway. But I'm honest enough to know that I'd have probably interfered too much. And so my disability made me see things in a different way, made me look for solutions that actually would not have been necessary or open to me. And they proved to be incredibly successful. By 2004, I was really struggling with my health. I was using work as a great painkiller. And when I was distracted, then I could turn my body off. And I was doing a whole range of different roles outside school to bring a budget into school because our budget was so bad, but at the same time to keep the school at cutting edge. But in 2004, I was given an ultimatum. Stop doing a 14, 15, 16-hour day on a regular basis, otherwise you'll be housebound. And so I made the difficult decision to leave school. I retired from headship and then thought, what the hell do I do now? I'm not very good at boredom, and I certainly don't think that daytime television is going to do it for me. So because I'd worked with so many schools through working as an advisor for the DFBS and for trainer facilitator for the National College of Leadership, I decided to look at, were the issues facing businesses around the development of leadership the same as they were in education? And so I designed a research project and discovered that, of course, actually they were. And I created my first business, which was Gina Gardiner Associates. I undertook all sorts of coaching in all sorts of ways to make sure that I was well prepared. And the business became something that was very successful. And in fact, after the first couple of years, I didn't need to market myself at all. People came because of recommendation. And that was working generally with business leaders, although doing some personal coaching as well. And I wrote my first 2 books, which were designed to be my calling card. And those are my first 2 books. Now, one of the interesting things for me is that however much personal development you do, there's always more to go. And on one of the courses that I went to with Tony Robbins, I went very cynically thinking, well, you know, I have no idea what this big American's going to offer me. He talked in the morning about a course in California, and I dismissed it thinking, I'm never going to manage that. I didn't have a travel electric chair on those at that time. How would I manage that? And so just dismissed it. But in the evening, I was determined to do the fire walk. By this time, I'd had an internal spinal stimulator fitted, and I could walk a very few steps unaided. So I was ecstatic to have achieved the fire walk. And as I sat down in my wheelchair, the guy behind me, who was a double amputee, turned himself onto his hands, and he walked over the hot coals, 20 to 30 feet on the hot coals on his hands. And in that moment, I recognized that I was self-limiting. I booked my ticket, I booked my flight, I went and did the course. I then did all of his courses and became a senior leader for him. And what it taught me is that the only thing that limits us is our beliefs about ourselves. And I challenge you to your version of the firework. What's limiting you from being the best version of you or helping the most people that you can help? I wrote my next book, which is a bit about my story and how I, the principles by which I lived my life and lived a very happy and successful, fulfilling life, and have become quite a prolific author in the last few years. So what's my passion and my purpose? It's personal empowerment and enlightened leadership. More and more, I had a sense that I needed to be doing things on a bigger stage. And so in 2018, I started Genuinely You online, the idea being able to impact on people globally. I had no internet presence. I didn't know what I was doing. There were some that would argue that I still don't know what I'm up to. But certainly that was the case in terms of technology. And it's proven to be something that's kept me out of my comfort zone ever since. My mission is to positively impact on at least 1 million leaders in the next 3 years through the development of enlightened leadership. And that means leading with authentically, with integrity, compassion, and courage. And if you look around the world, there are so many examples of poor leadership, and it's holding us back as a human race. And so I believe very passionately that in order to be an enlightened leader, you must first lead yourself, taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, and your words, because each of those leaves a living legacy. So where am I today? I've got 35 years experience of helping people achieve happiness, success, and fulfillment, but in an empowering way, helping them to do it for themselves, being the catalyst rather than them relying on me. I've helped business leaders, and within 9 to 10 months, all of those businesses have become significantly more profitable because they have focused on the wider holistic view of profits by looking at developing their people, having a business with purpose, knowing their why, and making a positive difference in the world. I'm a radical change catalyst speaker. My work is all about getting people to think and perhaps think differently, and then take sustained action to make that change be embedded. I've got a syndicated radio show called Gina Gardiner and Friends, and we regularly get 1.5 million listeners. I've written 35 books and created a myriad of programs, all of which are on the theme of personal empowerment and leadership. And these are just some of my products. So how do you achieve and maintain high levels of success as a business leader? You have to recognize that you are the common denominator. You take yourself into every moment of every day. And recognizing your patterns and being able to see which of those patterns are being developed because you think habitually is really important. If you want to be a successful leader and you want to create success and maintain it over time, you have to develop a success mindset. Know your why and then live your life with purpose. 95% of our thinking is habitual. It doesn't cross the conscious mind at all. So most people are totally in reactive mode rather than proactive mode. So they're triggered very easily. You know, somebody says something to you and you bite back. And usually it's the tone of voice rather than what's said. If you believe you can't, well, it's a done deal. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. Roger Bannister did the first 4-minute mile. Medics told him if he ran that fast, he would die through lack of oxygen. The fact that he did it, I think, is amazing. But what's more interesting to me is that within a month, over 30 other people had run a sub 4-minute mile. What had changed? They believed it was possible to do it without having to give up your life. Taking radical responsibility in your personal relationships, in your work relationships, in everything you do, I believe is an absolute game changer. So I've already talked about taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, beliefs, actions, and words, but doing that authentically. You've got to walk your talk. It's no good just paying lip service to it. And we are each responsible for everything we say and do or not, how and when we do it. And when we decide to take radical responsibility and stop blaming the economy, other people, the fact we haven't got the right tools, we're not good enough, then things change. Everything we do is a choice, and every choice has consequences. And it's often when we let things slide that the greatest consequences, and they're often negative ones, come to fruition. So what sort of living legacy are you leaving? Awareness is definitely the first stage, and one of the best things to do is to become the journalist of your own life. Look for the patterns, but without being judgmental. Understand those patterns and which ones are sabotaging you, keeping you playing small. Because when you do, then you can do something about them. And here are some of the most common ones that I've found. Have a think, and which one of those do you have as a pattern? And these are not inclusive. There are plenty more. And it's also possible to have a combination. So create clarity. What's your why? How do you communicate it to your team, your clients, prospective, and your existing clients and customers, your suppliers, your community and the wider world? And we've had a great example of how you can start to communicate to the wider world in a very different way, and how important that is for us all as business leaders. And take sustained action. So many people do the grand gesture and don't follow it through. So if you're planning strategically based on your data and your inner wisdom, you're going to get the best possible outcome. And remember, small actions consistently taken are the thing that makes the difference. Be creative. Get into your right-brained thinking, because we need creative thinkers, and nurture and grow the potential of the people around you, and collaborate. Ensure visibility as a business, because you need to be seen and heard amongst the crowd. So to find out more about how I can help you, I'll put my Linktree link into the chat. Love it if you could subscribe to my email, my YouTube channel, and I've put my email address there. So thanks very much for listening. That's a whistle-stop tour about me.
That's brilliant, Gina. Thank you. While you fiddle around and stop your share, I'll just kind of sum up what you've been saying there is, you are the common denominator of your business. It's so obvious, and yet it's kind of like a slap around the face of like, Oh yeah. You can't make excuses for everything, can you? You have to realize that the buck stops here. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. Yeah, round of applause for Gina. That was wonderful. Thank you. So don't forget to drop those links for everybody so they can subscribe to your YouTube channel. And we're just coming into the last little bit now.